Yeah.
All right, so we're on 70 today, right? If I read my calendar right. Yes, Wednesday. Today's Wednesday? 14?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. 70. Let's begin the new parak, the new chapter 7. So in the middle of 78. Okay. So here we are. We're discussing the notion of vows. If a husband, we've discussed already at length the obligations of a husband towards the wife. If a man makes a vow that he will not provide any, the Hebrew word is hana, any benefit to his wife for 30 days, or anything up to 30 days. So, then he's, on one hand, he made a vow, on the other hand, he's shirking his responsibility. So as we will see, in the extreme case, if he's not living up to his responsibility, then we force him to divorce his wife so that she can collect her ketubah and have means of support. But what if it's up to 30 days? The Mishnah says yamid parnas. So you set up a trust fund, basically, and so the indirection allows her to be supported from his funds, but he is not directly giving her the funds. He's allowing a third party, a trustee, to into his bank account so that he can write checks for the wife. Yester Mikain, longer than 30 days, if his vow is longer than that, Yosef Yitin Ksuba, then we force him to divorce her. And that way she can get her Ksuba, and presumably that provides her the means to live on. There's actually a dispute among the commentators if the Mishnah means that we force him to divorce, that we just try to convince him to divorce. So it seems like, the way I've explained it, it would seem that it would only make sense to force him to divorce, but there is that debate. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Yisrael, Rabbi Yehuda makes a distinction between a Kohen and a non-Kohen. If a person's a Kohen, then she's allowed to eat truma, right? His wife is allowed to eat truma. So divorcing her will actually restrict her access to food, basically, because she would no longer be allowed to eat truma. So Rabbi Yehuda says, Israel, if a person is a non-Kohen, then we agree with the Mishnah that for the first, if the vow is for less than a month or up to a month, then we use the trustee idea. But if it extends to 2 months, then of course I'm sure the Gemara will ask, what about between 1 and 2 months, right? But if the vow extends to 2 months, then he should divorce her. But if it's a Kohen, then because divorcing her would cause her to lose a potential means of support, presumably truma is cheaper because it doesn't have as big a market, and it also has to be treated a certain way. You can't make a tame, etc. So it's not as desirable on the open market. So then we don't want to deprive her of access to truma. So then we say if the vow is up to 2 months, then he should support her through a trustee. But more than 2 months, that's too much. If it's 3 months, then he has to give her a divorce and pay her the ketubah. So Rashi just explains, what's the difference, what happens between 1 month and 2 months. Rashi just explains that 2 months means extending into the second month, and 3 months means extending into the third month. So that's an easy way around that. Hamad Yusishta, Shaloti Tomechon Mikol HaPeros. So if a person makes a vow that he's not going to allow his wife to eat bananas, right? Or one like a particular kind of fruit. Yosef Tuba. That's enough to make him divorce her and give her the ksuba. In other words, the support that he owes her is not a restricted kind of support. She should eat whatever she wants. She should be able to buy whatever she wants. She wants to buy bananas. She should buy bananas. Restricting her from buying bananas is grounds for divorce, so that she can then have her own money and buy her own bananas. It's okay that she doesn't eat bananas for one day, right? If he says today no bananas, then I'm not giving you bananas today as a vow. Then if it's one day, that's fine. But if it's more than one day, then he has to divorce her. So this is even stricter than like not giving any food at all, right? Perhaps because there's no dodge. You can't say, well, have him set up a banana trustee, right? The trustee that will allow her to buy bananas. I guess that seems kind of ridiculous. Or perhaps because like this idea of restricting what she can buy is even more onerous than not having anything at all. That's arguable, but it's worth considering. Cohen, but if it's Cohen, then again we have more of a reason to keep her married, because for her to remain married because of the eating, because she's entitled to truma then. So then Shnayim Yikayim, so he can make the banana vow for 2 days and keep her as a wife. But Shlosha eating, Yosef eating, if it extends to 3 days, he should divorce her. You can't use Dior perfume. Makes a vow that I'm not buying you Dior perfume. Then he has to divorce her. So in other words, this is just as important as food. The sustenance is, of course, key to the whole support thing, but it applies to other things as well. But Rabbi Yossi Omer, ba'anius shelo natan kitzva. In the case of poor women, then the stricture about perfume, but using particular perfume, that then we make it a 30-day limit, presumably because if you're poor, you don't have money to spend anyway on perfume. So it's not like a well-off woman would use perfume every day, and so the idea that the husband was from doing that is not acceptable. But someone who only wears perfume on Rosh Chodesh, then like it's not that much of an effect for the husband to say no Dior for 30 days. So I'm sorry. So if it's an unlimited, so he's arguing with the 1 day thing. He's saying if it's a poor woman, there's no limit. You can say, for a whole year, no perfume. But if you're a wealthy person, then 30 days is the maximum. Okay. So more asks, the Kevan the Meshubah. Since, like, we're questioning the whole principle here, since you already have an obligation to support your wife, how does the vow take effect at all? Like, he doesn't even have the right to take this vow, so it should be void to begin with. Vatnan, because we have a Mishnah. Konam sha'eni ose leficha. If a woman says to the husband, I make a vow that I'm not going to work, for your benefit, then that's not even a vow that's worth annulling. Like the husband has the power on the same day that he hears the vow to annul it, but he doesn't even have to waste his breath because it doesn't have any effect. It's like she doesn't have the power to say, I'm not giving you I'm not handing over my paycheck to you because it belongs to him. She doesn't have the right to do that. Alma, so we see, Kevan de Meshabdale, since this is the legal fact, is that the money belongs to him anyway. Lav kol kamei, shibuda. So he has no. She doesn't have the right to take this vow. It's meaningless. It's like if I say, I'm vowing Well, no, okay, that's a bad analogy, but you see, you get the point. So hachanami, so it should be the same in the case of where the husband has the obligation to support her. How can he take a vow to not support her? It's like you can't, that vow has no effect. Given the Mishua law, lav kol kamin demafkel shibuda, we shouldn't pay any attention to the words of his vow. Ella, so what do we have to say? Actually, we do have this rule that if the husband says, listen, we're going to make a deal here. You know what? I don't want to support you anymore, but in return, you can earn your own paycheck, right? You don't have to hand over the paycheck to me, but stay out of my bank account and stay out of my kitchen, out of my pantry. So since he has that right, so he does have some rights to abrogate this arrangement. And so if he takes that vow, it's a valid vow, because the way he can approach it is saying, yes, you're not permitted to, I take a vow not to support you, then he has some rights in that area. So so the Gemara says, well, that implies that that he's allowing her to earn her own paycheck. So then, now we're going to, I think, ask the question, so why the 30-day thing? Why is there a limit? So if that's the case, so can the woman, if the Rav Huna says the woman can initiate that also, the woman can say, listen, I want to keep my own paycheck. You don't have to support me anymore. She can do that. Or so when she says, I'll take a vow that I'm not going to hand over my paycheck, so we saw the Mishnah that said in such a case, the husband doesn't even have to annul the vow. It doesn't take effect. So just like we say about the husband, we're trying to say about the husband that he has the right to say no more food, because he can also say you can earn your own paycheck, right? So why doesn't she have the same right? She can say, but the Mishnah Nedarim says that this is not a good vow. So maybe we should say to that Mishnah Nedarim, since she has the power to say, I'm not handing over my paycheck, but you don't have to support me, so she can take that vow. So why does the Mishnah say that the vow is meaningless? So don't say that it's as if he said, it's like since he has the power to say, I don't want your paycheck, therefore he has the power to say, I'm not feeding you. So the Mishnah, it must be talking about where he actually says that, right? It's not a question of, he seems to have some rights in that area. He's actually making that deal, right? He's saying that, yes, I'm not supporting you, go earn your own money. So why do you need, if our mission is, that's what our mission is talking about, what do you need the trustee for, right? She can earn her own money. There doesn't have to be a need for a trustee. Where answer is below sapka. That's where, she can't get a good enough job, right? Labor market is soft. She's unskilled. So he can make that deal, but if it turns out that she's still unsupported, that she can't support herself, he's still ultimately responsible for keeping her fed, keeping her sustenance, and so he would have to appoint a trustee. Gemara says, wait, even low safka, if we're talking about such a case where she can't get a good enough job, hadar kushim l'duchte. We're back to the original to the original question. How can he make such a vow, right? So if it's a case where she wouldn't be able to get a job, then the vow is meaningless, because the condition that he's imposing is impossible. So the vow makes no sense. So what are we talking about? Okay, she can earn a minimum wage, right? Which means that she can buy, her basics, right? Devarim Gedolim, the things that she really needs, let's say, she can buy basically, I don't know, she can buy enough to keep her alive. But she wouldn't have anything left over. She has no discretionary income. And so the husband is still responsible for, the husband is responsible to support her as per his station. If she wants to buy, blueberries every day, then he is responsible to make that happen. So by saying go in your own paycheck, that only applies if the paycheck is big enough to support the same lifestyle that she would have on his nickel. Now the Gemara says, okay, what do we mean by the big things and the small things, the staples and the luxuries? Either Gilabahu, if we're talking about where she is, she always buys blueberries every day, right, on the husband's nickel. So then that's how he has to support her. Then the vow would not take effect, right? Because she doesn't have the ability to earn enough to buy blueberries every day. And if she's not a regular blueberry buyer, so then fine, so now the husband is responsible to set up a trustee so that she can buy blueberries every day. That's not right. So Warren says, let's see nasa. Nasha. Oh, sorry. It's when she was living at home before they got married in her father's house. Then they were well off, and she had the habit of having discretionary income. Become a galgala bahade. And so, wait, now she's married, so she hasn't been buying blueberries every day. But maybe we're saying, she was just kind of going along with the husband. She can say, really, I'm a blueberry eater. Okay, I'm accustomed to having, X dollars to spend every week. All right, I've been giving you a break because I see you're having a hard time. You started a new business, things are slow. So I've been foregoing the luxuries or the discretionary items which I am accustomed to, and therefore entitled to. But now, but now that you're making this horrible vow, right? You're trying to cut me off. No, I'm not going to give you such an easy time anymore, right? Now I'm going to insist on what's due me, right? Which is, I always ate blueberries every day, and you have the responsibility to support me. You don't want to support me. Now I'm going to take you for everything I can.
Sounds like modern times.
Indeed, right? Yeah, well, human nature hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed.
Circumstances have changed, but not human nature, not so much.
What a truth that is, Doug. That is a truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so if this is the case, then what's the 30-day thing? Like, what's the difference if it was less than 30 days or more than 30 days? That after 30 days we can't rely on the trustee thing. Because for 30 days people will not really notice. If she doesn't, I guess if she doesn't show up at the greengrocers for 30 days to buy the blueberries, then nobody will notice. So she doesn't have to be embarrassed about it. But if it's more than 30 days, word gets around, right? And people will, it's degrading for her. And so that's why we make this distinction. Okay? It's not just about the blueberries. It's also about her reputation, which is interesting because we end up in a different kind of place than we started. We thought this was all about, just sustenance, right? But it turns out to be about dignity. Another possible answer. Of like why does this vow take effect in the first place? Because doesn't he have the obligation to support her? How can he take a vow against that? Shehidira kishehiarusa. Maybe he made the vow before he had that obligation. Maybe they're just engaged, right? Then he takes the vow, then they get married. And now, like, surprise, I took this vow that you can't, that I won't support you. So since when he took the vow, it actually took effect, and then he took on the obligation to support her. Well, now we've turned the tables. He cannot, in one sense, he can't take on the obligation to support her because he's under the restrictions of his vow. On the other hand, he did marry her, so he does have that obligation. So that's why we use the dodge of the trustee. So Arusa mi Islam izane. So the Gemara says, well, like, why would he? why should he? The Gemara says, why does he have to provide the trustee? Because the vow is a valid vow. So the Gemara says, "Shegias man below nisu," because they had already set the wedding date. The wedding is going to be on July 15th, and that falls within the period of his vow. So since and the Mishnah says it's none. The Mishnah says he gives Magdalene. So if the time for the wedding came and they hadn't actually gotten married, ochos mishalom, then ochos bitruma. Then you treat the woman as if she's really married, even though the wedding actually didn't take place. He is responsible to support her, and if he's a Kohen, she can eat truma. So. So the idea is that that when he takes the vow, it's like if there's no set date for the wedding and I take the vow for 30 days, then the vow takes effect. Now, true, the wedding date was supposed to fall within those 30 days, but so who told you to get married? Get married later. But this mission says, no, you can't get married later. If the time comes that you set for the wedding, or maybe, it could be referring to the year, you're supposed to get married within a year of the engagement. So if the time comes and you still haven't gotten married, then you do still have the responsibility to feed her. That's why you have the trustee, even though it seems like the vow should take precedence. Yeah, so get married. You took a vow not to support this woman. So marry her after the vow period is over. On the other hand, you have a responsibility, even though you haven't married her, to support her as of the original date of the wedding. So that's why we, since there's that conflict, that's why we use the dodge of the trustee. Why 30 days? Because nobody's going to take that job as a trustee if it's more than 30. Okay. Or another approach would be really, he took the vow when they were engaged, and she actually married him. So Nisei Sasavra Vikibla. Wait a minute. So if she agreed to marry him, she knew about the vow. So clearly she accepted the terms, as it were. She married him knowing that she's not going to get support until the vow is completed. So the Gemara says, I thought I could handle it, right? I thought that, okay, so he took this vow. First 30 days of our marriage, he won't have to support me. I'm okay with that. But I see it's not so easy, right? I'm hungry, right? I thought I had the resources to earn my own living, or I thought I had enough money, but it turns out not so. So Mora says, wait a minute. When do you say that if the husband had some kind of deficiency, okay, that then we say that we can annul the marriage because she thought, listen, I thought it would be fine for me to live with the person with only one leg, but it turns out it wasn't as easy as it looked. I can't handle it. So then we say she can demand a divorce, but that's something that really you couldn't imagine before you got married, right? It's a situation that you really, we understand that you thought you could handle it, but it turns out you can't. But everybody understands what it's like to not have support. Like, you have X dollars in your bank account, or that you have whatever how much resources you have, and what food costs, right? So what is it that you're demanding a divorce for? You should have known better. Okay, we're rejecting this last answer. One of the two earlier ones is we'll stick with. So Ad Shloshim Yom Yamid Parnas. So we're going to address the 30 days that if the vow is up to 30 days, then you appoint a trustee to support her. So wait a minute, how does that help us? Right? It's still your money. right? So how does it help if you send the money through somebody else? You're still supporting her, so you're going against your vow. We're talking about where you're not. He's not the trustee is not dipping into your bank account. It's that the husband is saying, my wife needs to be supported. Don't worry, anybody who supports her, I'll make him whole. So then the payment is indirect, right? You're paying somebody else, and the third party is paying your wife. So that level of indirection is what makes it okay. To appoint a trustee, so, and to still abide by the terms of your vow, that you're not directly supporting your wife. That's so. Still isn't like the Gemara is not really buying that level of indirection is helpful. And here's a proof. It's now we have a Mishnah. Somebody is trapped in a pit. If you can hear me, I'm going to die. Nobody's getting me out of this pit. Trapped in a cave. Anybody can hear me, please. I'm appointing you as an agent to divorce my wife, right? So that way she doesn't have to deal with the uncertainty of his death, or she can still, and that way she can collect the ketubah, right? So go do it. So this is kind of it's a little unclear to me how this applies to our case. But there is a level of indirection, because technically the husband has to instruct the scribe directly to write the get. And here he's usually the idea of an agent in a get is delivering the get, right? So if a man has a get written for his wife, a divorce written for his wife, he can send it with somebody else to give to her. That's the typical shaliach, the typical agent. But here we're talking about an agent to write the get, right? An agent for the scribe to write the get. So it is kind of the same kind of level of indirection. I mean, you could poke a lot of holes in this question, in this analogy. So the Gemara says, "Hachihash, is that right?" Like, that's a question. There, he's actually instructing, write the get, right? Hacha Mika Amar Yazun. Here he's not saying that he will support her. Call his uncom, saying somebody else, if a third party supports her, then he won't lose out. That's not sufficient for the trustee to be considered his agent, and therefore it's okay for the trustee to support the woman. So the Gemara is not done yet. If there was a case of a fire on Shabbos, and you're not allowed to put out the fire, but you need it put out, right? It's dangerous and so on, and it's destructive. So you can say, Kol hamachava eino mafsid. You can say, if somebody calls the fire department, I'll pay the quarter. You're not going to lose, right? So this is permitted on Shabbos. Like, usually you can't just tell somebody, call the fire department. I mean, look, if we're talking about where there's an immediate danger to life, that's clearly not what we're talking about here. We're talking about danger to property, I suppose. So you can't tell a non-Jew, call the fire department, right? But so aren't we? So by saying this, isn't Rav Ami kind of buying into this idea that making this statement that if anybody does this, then he'll be compensated? Isn't that the same kind of indirection we're talking about here, rather than please call the fire department? Gemara says, "Lo, it's not comparable." No, what he's saying is that you can do this for a fire, but not for other Shabbos restrictions. Rabba asks, Hamudar Hanam Chavero. Another Mishnah says, if you make a vow to not benefit from somebody else, but now you have no assets, you have nothing to eat, and this guy is willing to provide you with food. but you've taken this vow. So what should you do? Go to the guy's, the guy's grocer where he has an account. And he said, and say to the grocer, so say, so and so. I can't give him anything directly because he took a vow not to benefit from me. And I want to support him, but now he's taken this vow. So who knows him? So the grocer can give him the food. Then he can collect from from the guy who wants to support his friend but is restricted by the vow. So again, that seems to be like it seems like the Mishnah is saying that that's only because the guy has nothing to eat, right? I will call a zon and mafsid lo, but making the statement that this general statement that don't worry, anybody who supports this person, I'll make him whole. He's not going to lose, which is more like our Mishnah. So Gemara says, "Lo mibayah kamar." No, it's not excluding that. It's saying that not only can you do that, not only can you directly engage your grocer, but not only can you say anybody can support this guy and I'll make sure he comes out whole, to alma kamer, which is a general statement of high. You can even do the case where you speak directly to your grocer and basically give him instructions. Since this is my regular grocer, so it's command zil havle at dame. I might have thought that this is almost like directly supporting the person, since you're giving specific instructions to your specific grocer and telling him what to do. So we say no in this case, that it's okay. That's we're going to allow it as if he had just said and made a general statement. Somebody take care of this and don't worry about it. Okay. Again, I think these analogies are not that great, but the Gemara doesn't seem to be bothered by it. Okay, Gufa, we said before. If you make a vow not to accept benefit from somebody else, turns out you have nothing to eat. So that guy can go to his grocer, say to your grocer, I need to help this guy, but I don't know what to do because of the vow. Who knows in lo? Then the storekeeper, the grocer, can send over the food, and he can collect from this guy who's subject to the vow. So and that Mishnah continues. What if the guy needed a house built, and he made a vow not to accept help from you? Or you needed to put up a fence, or you needed help with the harvest. So same idea. Go to my workers. The Omerland and say to them, that your boss, he wants to support me, but no, it's the other way around. It's like I the boss, go to the workers and say, so and so Stan wants to needs to build a house or build a fence or harvest his crops, but he won't accept help from me because of his vow. So hey, nosing emo. So the laborers take the clue, and they go in and work for him, do the work. And they come and they get their wages from me. And if two people are traveling together, excuse me, one has nothing to eat, and there's a vow that one won't support the other. So nosin la'achar l'shumatana. There must be somebody else in your party. Give it to somebody else as a gift. And then that person can give the gift to the hungry person. That's okay. What if there's nobody else you're traveling with? So basically, you can't give it directly because of the vow. So you just put the sandwich on a rock and leave it there. The Omer and say, I'm making this this food ownerless. Anybody who wants it can come get it. But halal, no tovel chel mutar. Then the other guy can pick it up. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yossi says, no, that's dodging your netter. You can't do that. Amarav, Rav explains, my Talmud Rabbi Yossi, what's his reason? Gezerah mishum maseh de beis charav. This is because of the incident that happened in Beis Haran. So what is that incident? I confess I did not prepare this far, so let's see. Man was marrying off his son and wanted the grandfather to attend the wedding, but the grandfather had taken a netter not to have any benefit from the father, right? So the father said, I'm giving you as a third party, I'm giving you, the wedding hall and the caterer, that I hired, I'm giving it to you as a gift, but just because I want my father to become able to join us at the wedding. And then that person says, okay, I accept the gift. And now I'm making them hektish. I am making them, donating them to the Beis Hamikdash, to the temple. So then the guy says, wait, that's not why I gave you the gift. Now, since his original statement was, I'm only giving you the gift for this purpose, so that means that it was that the recipient did not have the right to do something else with it, but it also meant that the whole thing was a ruse to begin with, right? If he had given it to him outright, so it may have been a dodge, but at least it was valid. Here, it's like, I'm not really giving you this gift. I'm only giving you the gift for the purpose of my father coming to the wedding. Well, that doesn't hold any water. So similarly, in our case, it's a gift that is clearly being done for a particular purpose and not as a full out an outright gift. And so that's why Rabbi Yossi says that strategy won't work. And we'll stop here.
Thank you, Dov. Have a good day.
You too.